Welcome to Pen and Perspective, where the story always knows more than it's telling. Every word is intentional. Every silence holds a truth. Let's get into it. Final update. Kendall's voice came through a link. An acquaintance texted it first. What is this? No greeting, no emoji, just a blue hyperlink and a thumbnail with Kendall's face and a title that made my stomach turn. I clicked it before my husband could say my name. Her voice poured out of the speakers, calm and deliberate. The kind of calm that says the volcano already erupted and you're standing in the ash. Tonight's story, she said, is about a man who went to prison for something he did not do, and the network of people who helped make that possible. My husband muttered, "Turn that off," but his hand didn't move. He just stood behind my shoulder, breathing over me, eyes glued to the screen. I didn't turn it off, because the second picture that flashed across the video, Walter. The third, a blurred screenshot from the barbershop security footage with Taylor's silhouette circled in red. My heart stopped, then slammed back into my chest so hard I had to press a hand to my sternum. Kendall didn't say Taylor's name at first. She walked everybody through the setup. The 9 extra minutes at the gas station, the upgrade program, and the paperwork. And then she said it. She wasn't a stranger. She was family. The kind the room always trusts. Clean record, good job, soft smile, the one who helps with paperwork and never raises her voice. She didn't show Taylor's face, but she might as well have. The description alone was a fingerprint. My husband swore under his breath, a low sound from somewhere deep in his chest. The comments were already flying up the side of the screen. People tagging each other, speculating, asking who she was. I could feel my pulse in my teeth. Kendall went further. She started asking the questions we've been working so hard not to speak out loud. Who signed what? Who benefited? Who knew something was wrong and took the deal anyway because it came wrapped in bonuses and praise? I felt my husband's hand clamp down on the back of my chair. "We need to lawyer up," he said. "Lawyer up for what?" I snapped, too sharp. "She doesn't have proof of anything. She's guessing." "Guessing loud enough for the whole city to hear," he shot back. Kendall never said our names, but her family has deep ties in law enforcement. Was more than enough for anybody paying attention. My brother-in-law's badge hung in that sentence like a shadow. No! By the time the video ended, the view count was already climbing. 5,000, 8, 10. The chat was still going. That commander. The barbershop. Who processed the upgrades? The phone rang before we had even caught our breath. I didn't have to look at the screen to know who it was. My husband and I locked eyes. We both stared at the phone like it might bite. We've been sending my brother-in-law to voicemail for days. At first we told ourselves we needed time to think. Then we told ourselves it might be better if things calmed down first. Now there was no calm. "Answer it," I whispered. My husband shook his head. "If I answer wrong." "If you don't answer, you look guilty." My voice broke on the last word. "Answer the phone." He took a breath, picked it up, and put it on speaker. "Hey, man." No greeting came back, just silence thick enough to choke on. When my brother-in-law finally spoke, his voice was stripped of every familiar softness. "For your sake," he said, "I hope you two stayed the hell out of this." I swallowed. "Out of what?" I started, but my husband put a hand up to stop me. "Don't play dumb with me," the commander said. "My son went to prison. That girl in that video looks a whole lot like Tatler, and y'all been making calls to people who got no business hearing from y'all." My husband closed his eyes. "We haven't done anything illegal," he said carefully. "We've just been trying to protect our child and figure out what's going on." "Let me make something real clear," my brother-in-law said. Each word hit like a gavel. "The DA is looking at interference. Anybody who tried to push, pressure, or fix things around this case, they're going to pull records, phone logs, emails. If your names show up where they shouldn't, you won't be sitting next to me at Sunday dinner. You'll be sitting in front of a judge." The room tilted. "So you're saying we can't ask questions about our own daughter?" I managed. "I'm saying," he replied, "if you used my name, my position, or any of your little contacts to help keep her clear while my boy rotted, you better pray there's nothing they can tie back to you, because I will not stand in the way if they decide to come for you too." He didn't yell. That was the worst part. I'd heard him yell in uniform and out of it, seen him furious at rookies, at suspects, at anybody who wasted his time. This wasn't that. This was colder, Final. I've got investigators sniffing around anything that touched this case, he said. Kendall's little video just poured gasoline on it. If I were you, I'd stop calling people, stop trying to fix things, and get ready for the truth to come out. The line clicked off. We sat there staring at the phone, listening to the absence of his voice. My husband was the first to move. He went straight for the drawer where we kept important folders, house documents, tax returns, retirement accounts. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Looking at our call logs," he muttered, reaching for his laptop instead. "Seeing who we reached out to. Who might mention our names if they're pressed. We have to know what they can see." He was right. I hated that he was right. Every call we've made over the last few weeks, judges, retired detectives, a counsel aide, somebody's uncle who knew people downtown, suddenly looked different in my mind. Not like concerned parents seeking clarity, but like co-conspirators tugging at strings they had no business touching. We'd reminded folks who we were related to. We traded on my brother-in-law's name even when we didn't say it out loud. And now, those numbers were sitting in someone's database, little digital breadcrumbs leading back to our front door. Maybe, I started slowly, maybe it won't matter. We didn't know what Taylor was into, we wanted answers. My husband didn't look up. "You heard him," he said. "Intent doesn't matter when they're cleaning up a mess like this, perception does." The computer chimed. A new email slid into the inbox from one of the people we had reached out to early on, a man who owed us a favor from a campaign we helped once. "There may be questions coming down about calls related to that case. Please do not contact me again regarding your daughter or the investigation." I could feel the ground shifting under us. "Okay," I breathed, pressing my fingers to my temples. "Okay, we stop calling. We lay low." My husband nodded, jaw clenched. "That's not going to stop what's already been logged," he said quietly. The first aftershock, Dante. 2 days after Kendall's video detonated across the city, another headline slid across our phones. Quiet, but not quiet enough. I read it twice. My husband read it 3 times. Neither of us said anything at first, and Dante. If he was in custody, then the tide had turned. "He's the one who brought her into the paperwork mess," my husband muttered. "If he's down, she's next." I didn't want to agree, but I felt it. We spent the next 48 hours in lawyers' offices, conference rooms, and on conference calls. Half the attorneys we contacted wouldn't touch the case once they saw Kendall's exposé trending. The other half wanted fees that bordered on extortion. Everywhere we went, people whispered when we walked in, and everywhere we went, someone asked, "Is your daughter involved?" We didn't have an answer that felt clean. We called the jail repeatedly, trying to confirm whether Taylor had been flagged or questioned. Each time the staff repeated the same line: "We cannot release information at this time." The waiting hollowed something out in both of us. We didn't sleep, we barely ate. We watched the city talk about our family without knowing what pieces of the story were true. I was making tea when my phone rang. The call ID flashed unknown. I hesitated before answering. "Mom." Her voice sounded small, smaller than it had since she was a child. No silk, no polish, just raw. "Taylor?" My throat tightened. "Where are you?" "They arrested me," she said. "I'm in holding." The room went silent around me. "What are they charging you with?" my husband asked, stepping closer so she could hear him through the speaker. She started to speak again. They rattled off a list: fraud, interference, accessory. I don't even remember all of it. They said my lawyer will explain, but that they have everything. Mom, they brought up the... "Stop!" I yelled. "All calls are monitored. We're on our way." "Mom, she said, but the call ended. I wanted to tell her it was going to be okay, that we would fix it like we always did, that this was just a horrible misunderstanding. But my brother-in-law's voice was still ringing in my ears. "If your names show up where they shouldn't..." On the drive to the jail, the city looked different. The same streets, the same billboards, the same palm trees, but every traffic light felt like a checkpoint. Every police car I saw made my chest tighten. "Hey, what are we going to say when we see her?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to ask her what she was thinking. Part of me wants to hold her and tell her we'll fix it." "We can't promise that anymore," he said. "I know," I whispered. For years our roles have been clear. He handled the big talks, the speeches about responsibility and legacy. I handled the image, the softness, the smoothing over. Now there was nothing to smooth. The building came into view. County facility, squat and beige, buzzing with fluorescent light even in the daytime. We parked in near silence. Inside, the air was stale and overcooled. A correctional officer at the front window took our names without looking up at us, fingers moving lazily over the keyboard. "We're here to see our daughter," I said, my voice clipped. "She was brought in today." "Name?" the clerk asked. I gave him Taylor's full name. He clicked a few things. "She's being processed. You can't see her yet. You can leave a message for her public defender." "She doesn't have a public defender," I said quickly. "We'll be hiring private counsel." "Then they can contact us when they're assigned," he replied, tone unchanged. "Is she all right?" I demanded. "Has she eaten? Is she—" "Ma'am," he said, still not looking at me, "she is being processed like everyone else. You'll be notified when there's a court date." The way he said, "like everyone else," made something hot rise in my chest. For the first time in a long time, our last name didn't move anything. It didn't open doors. It didn't soften his voice. My husband put a hand on my elbow. "Come on," he murmured. "We'll call a lawyer from the car." We stepped back out into the daylight, blinking. "Let's just sit a minute," he said, nodding toward a narrow strip of sidewalk that ran along the front of the building. We walked slowly, trying to catch our breath and our thoughts. That's when the door opened again. The sound was ordinary, just a metal frame and a hydraulic hinge releasing, but it cut through everything. A man stepped out. At first, I only registered the details. Tall, lean, dress shirt rolled at the sleeves, a lanyard with an ID badge clipped to his belt, a face that looked like an older echo of my daughter. Same eyes, same jawline, but more weathered, more grounded. My brain took a full 3 seconds to stitch those details together. Tyler, our son. He had aged in the way that some men do when they finally grow into themselves. No longer the restless boy we'd last seen standing in our doorway with a duffel bag, shouting that he was done trying to be what we wanted. Now he looked like a man other people trusted, a man in charge of something, a man who had built a life without us. He almost walked right past us. No hesitation, no dramatic pause. He was focused on the parking lot, on the car fob in his hand, on getting wherever he was going next. But something made him glance up. Our eyes met. Time didn't slow down so much as stretch. I could see it all at once, the way his mouth tightened, the way his fingers stilled, the way something shuddered behind his eyes. "Tyler," I breathed. His name came out like a prayer and a confession. He stopped, but only for a heartbeat. "Y'all shouldn't be here," he said. His voice was calmer than I expected. No raised volume, no cursing, none of the wild anger from the night he left, just a tired kind of truth. "We came to see your sister," my husband said, trying to keep his own voice steady. "I know," Tyler replied. "I just came from her." The sentence hit harder than it should have. He had seen her before we did, sat across from her in some cold room, asked her questions we hadn't had the courage to ask, listened to answers we still didn't have. My hand moved before my mind caught up. I reached out, just a little, fingers hovering in the air between us like they might find his shoulder, like they had when he was a child running too close to the street. He stepped just out of reach. "We read about you," I said, the words tumbling out. "The article. We saw your work, your family." "This isn't about me," he cut in lightly. "This is about what y'all did and didn't do." His gaze flicked between us, and for the first time I saw something in his eyes I couldn't spin away. Disappointment that had calcified into distance. "The DA's office is looking at everybody who touched this," he said quietly. "They're looking at contacts, calls, favors. I can't help you with that." "We were just trying to protect her," I said, and even as I said it, the words felt thin. "And look where that got her," he answered. There it was. No yelling, no big scene, just a mirror held up to everything we'd done and called love. My husband cleared his throat. "Son," he said softly, is it bad?" Tyler exhaled slowly. "For Taylor?" he said. "Yeah, it's bad. She's going to have to sit with what she did, so are you." The "you" landed heavy. He didn't wait for our response, didn't offer us comfort or consolation, didn't reach for a hug. He just adjusted the strap of his bag on his shoulder, took a step to the side, and started walking toward the lot again. Tyler, I tried one more time. He paused with his back to us. You'll get your visit, he said. You'll have your chance to talk to her. Just don't waste it pretending y'all are innocent. Then he kept walking. Tyler walking away again didn't just shock us. It cut. We had been denied at the window, but our estranged son had already talked to her? My husband whispered, How the hell did he get back there? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. What I did know was our son, the one we spent years pretending didn't exist, was inside the very room we'd been denied access to. It made something inside me twist. Shame, wonder, and a stab of fear over who he had become. We didn't get to see Taylor until the next morning, but even as we walked toward the visitation area, one truth sat heavy between us. Tyler had been here before us. For parents who built an entire life around image, around control, around protecting our children from every bruise. It was a fracture we didn't know how to hide. Courtrooms are disrespectful. That's the first thing I thought sitting there watching my daughter's life get translated into legal language like she was a case study instead of somebody I carried inside my body. Wood panels, cold benches, schedules moving on time while families fall apart in real time. The judge spoke calmly, efficiently, like none of this was personal. Meanwhile, I felt like my entire chest was caving in one quiet inch at a time. My husband sat beside me stiff as stone, but I could feel the tension in him anyway. 40 years together teaches you how to recognize somebody unraveling without movement. Across the aisle sat Walter. He never looked at Taylor directly, not once. And somehow that hurt worse than anger would have. I would have preferred yelling, preferred rage, preferred somebody standing up and calling my daughter selfish or stupid or reckless. But disappointment? Disappointment leaves no room to defend yourself against it. The judge started summarizing Taylor's role, and every sentence felt like another door closing. Assisting in orchestrating a delay, leveraging her position at work, facilitating funding structures she benefited from, accepting bonuses tied to outcomes she knew weren't clean, remaining silent after the crash. Hearing it stripped down like that did something ugly to me because suddenly all the explanations we've been clinging to sounded thin. All the she didn't know, she got manipulated. Started shrinking down into one truth I did not want to sit with. If my daughter knew enough to stop, she just didn't want to. And if I was being honest, that part didn't come from nowhere. When the judge announced the plea agreement, I felt my husband flinch beside me. Actually flinch. His breath left him slow like somebody punched a hole through his ribs. Mine caught halfway up my throat because reduced charges still meant charges. Still meant guilt. Still meant our daughter standing in a courtroom admitting she helped destroy a man's life. And the commander sat across the room and didn't acknowledge us once. That hurt too. Not because he owed us comfort, but because I knew exactly what his silence meant. Distance, containment, protection of his own name, and I couldn't even blame him for it because if the situation were reversed, I might have done the same thing. That's the ugliest part of all this. Realizing how many things our family taught our children without ever saying them out loud. Protect appearances, manage fallout, handle problems quietly, do whatever needs doing before outsiders get involved. We dressed it up prettier than that, of course, but sitting in that courtroom watching my daughter plead guilty, I finally had to ask myself what exactly we thought we were raising. Taylor looked small standing there, but not fragile, just tired. And for one terrible second, I saw myself in her. Not her face, though. In her instincts, the compartmentalizing, the calmness under pressure, the ability to convince yourself something isn't wrong if enough successful people benefit from it. That realization sat in my stomach like poison. When court ended, people started standing slowly, carefully, like everybody was afraid one wrong movement would make the whole room collapse. Walter got up first. Sandra followed him. Neither one of them looked our direction. Again, I couldn't blame them. Still hurt, though. My husband waited until the courtroom started emptying before speaking. We need to talk to Tyler, he said quietly. Of course, because even now, with our daughter standing there sentenced, fallout still moving in every direction, our family was still trying to manage relationships instead of sitting in truth. We met Tyler 2 days later. Mastros, Because God forbid this family ever have hard conversations somewhere honest. Nope, we still need to be seen. I watched him walk in and immediately understood something that made me uncomfortable. He moved through the world like somebody who no longer needed permission to exist. And I realized, sitting there looking at him, that maybe losing access to him all those years ago wasn't punishment for him. Maybe it was punishment for us. My husband tried first, awkwardly complimenting his businesses, mentioning articles, trying to bridge 15 years with surface conversation. I built all of it without you, he said. I tried apologizing after that. A real apology, I think, or at least the closest thing I knew how to offer. We didn't know how to raise a child who didn't fit the mold. The second I said it, I heard how selfish it sounded, still centering our discomfort and making his pain about our confusion. Tyler nodded slowly. Even now, he said, I'm still something you're trying to adjust to, not accept. That one landed hard because it was true. We had spent years trying to edit our children into versions we understood better. And Taylor? God. Taylor learned how to survive inside systems from us. My husband started talking about moving forward, about reconnecting, about not understanding how to explain his son's absence to people all these years. And Tyler looked genuinely exhausted hearing it. Move forward to what? He asked quietly. You haven't done the backward part yet. Silence after that. Heavy silence. Then Tyler said something that stayed with me ever since. The day I left, you stopped being my parents. I think that was the moment I understood consequences don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they arrive as absence. I asked him if he understood what it felt like finding out he got married and had children without telling us. And he answered immediately. Yes, it felt like consequences. That word has followed me ever since Taylor's sentencing, because this started long before Walter's accident. It started in all the quiet ways we taught our children that image mattered more than honesty. By the time we walked out of Mastro's, I realized neither of my children trusted us with the truth. One disappeared and built a life without us. The other learned how to lie with composure good enough to survive boardrooms. And somehow, my husband and I were still standing there pretending we were victims in the story. That night, after the house was quiet, my husband sat in the dark living room with a glass in his hand and didn't say a word for almost 20 minutes. And then finally, we raised survivors. I looked at him across the room. No, I said softly. We raised children who learned how to perform safety around us. That hit him. I could see it. The real fallout didn't happen in the courtroom or even at Maestro's. That part surprised me. I guess thought humiliation would arrive all at once. Loud, public, obvious. Instead, it came quietly, like rot. The first thing that disappeared was access. People just stopped including us. The commander stopped answering my husband's calls unless absolutely necessary. Family events suddenly got rescheduled. Group dinners happened without invitations. Information reached us late or not at all. At first, we told ourselves everybody was overwhelmed. Then Thanksgiving came. No invitation. My husband tried to pretend it didn't bother him. It's probably better this year anyway, he said casually while standing in a kitchen too clean because nobody was actually cooking. I didn't answer him. Because we both knew. Nobody wanted the discomfort of us sitting at the table anymore. Not after people started connecting dots backward through our family like they were tracing cracks through glass. The whispers started after that. The kind where conversations pause half a second too long when you walk up. I caught two women talking at a charity event 3 months after sentencing. One of them didn't realize I was behind her. Makes sense now why the son disappeared all those years. That sentence nearly stopped my heart. Because suddenly Tyler leaving wasn't private family pain anymore. It had become evidence. Evidence that something inside our house had always been wrong. Everybody started looking backward, trying to find the beginning of the fracture. And the worst part, they found enough pieces to make ugly things believable. Mothers talk, especially wealthy mothers. Especially black wealthy mothers trying to protect family reputation while secretly enjoying the relief of somebody else's downfall happening instead of theirs. One woman grabbed my wrist at a luncheon and whispered, You know, people are saying y'all pushed your son out for being different. I smiled. Years of training and performance. But the second I got into the car afterward, I cried so hard I nearly threw up. Then came the think pieces. Respectability and silence in black professional families. Why high achieving families ignore emotional damage. Children raised for performance instead of safety. Nobody used our names, but everybody knew. Our family became one of those stories people discuss indirectly while pretending they're talking generally. Taylor's sentencing turned us into cautionary symbolism. One organization asked my husband to step back temporarily while public perception settled. Epilogue. 2 years later. By the time Taylor came home, people had mostly moved on. Not completely, but enough. That's the thing nobody tells you about public shame. If you survive it long enough, society eventually gets bored and starts pretending they always liked you anyway. My husband had slowly found his way back into certain rooms. Enough invitations started returning that he stopped checking his phone with dread every morning. A few old friends resurfaced too. Even the whispers had softened. Now people said things like, "That family been through a lot." Time smooths things out for the people watching from the outside. Taylor came home on a Thursday morning wearing prison-issued sweats and carrying one small bag. She looked like life had sanded something down inside her. I hugged her too tightly at first, and my husband immediately started talking logistics. "I spoke to somebody about a position," he told her before she'd even unpacked. "Nothing major, just something transitional until—" "No," Taylor said calmly. He blinked. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean no." He looked confused more than angry. "This is somebody doing us a favor." Taylor gave a small nod like she understood that perfectly. "That's the problem." Silence. I felt it before my husband did. That shift where a child stops participating in the emotional structure they were raised inside. "We're trying to help you," he said carefully. "I know," Taylor answered. "But every time y'all help, there's a version of me I'm supposed to become in return." She sounded so much like Tyler. My chest physically tightened. My husband heard it too. I watched his face change in real time. Taylor leaned back against the kitchen counter and crossed her arms. "For the first time in my life, I want to know what I can do when nobody's managing the outcome for me." For a second, all I could see was Tyler standing near that front door years ago, with that same exhausted look in his eyes. Taylor exhaled slowly and softened her voice. "I'm not saying don't love me," she said. "I'm saying stop trying to rebuild me into somebody easier to explain." That one almost took me out, because even after prison, our first instinct had still been image restoration. My husband sat down slowly at the table after that like his knees suddenly hurt. We just sat there, listening, maybe finally learning the difference. You've been listening to Pen and Perspective. If it sat in your spirit, let it linger. If it stirred something in you, don't ignore it. I'm Miana DK. And before I put my pen down, tell me, whose perspective should I sit with next?